What's up, my goblins and ghouls? We're back at it again with a new, different type of video. We're doing a tier list of all the 40k factions, just purely based off of what I think of them, not based on their strength, how good they are in the game, or anything like that. It's just purely like, do I think they're cool? Do I enjoy painting them? Do I enjoy playing or playing against them? That's kind of all the things that are going into this. And I'll talk a little bit about like just stuff in general. But just wanted to put that out there. Not really a definitive like this is top tier blah 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 blah, you know. It's just my opinion because sometimes I like painting certain things versus other things. And in terms of how we're ranking these, we have S going to be my, you know, my all-time favorite factions that I just enjoy for whatever reason, and then of course A B C D F, F being really like no. Just hard no. But I don't know if there's any that I really would feel that way about. I haven't really thought about it. So the other reason I'm kind of doing this is because I'm actually really thinking about what army I want to do next. Because as you guys might know, or if you're new to the channel, I am a Adeptus Sororitas player. So that is my entire 40k knowledge right now, is just the Battle Sisters, nothing else. I do want to expand and get a new army soon, especially with 10th edition coming out. So I'm kind of using this as a means to figure out like what is it that I really like painting wise, and then going to be playing wise soon. But we're going purely aesthetics today. So let's kick things off. We'll go in order of what's right here on this list, which it looks like it's Chaos Demons. For me, Chaos Demons they're cool. I do like a lot of their models. There aren't too many that I actually would be like, I really want, you know. I'm not a huge display painter quite yet. I will eventually like to get there once I get better, and I just got to keep practicing. But in terms of Chaos Demons models, there aren't too many that I'm like gung-ho about, but I don't think they're necessarily completely bad. I would probably put Chaos Demons as like right smack in the middle. You know, I wouldn't really go against them or anything like that. I have no qualms with them. Pretty easy. So next up, we got the Adeptus Custodes. All right, so hot take already, or who knows? I don't know. I feel like I hear this multiple opinions about Custodes across the board. I know for a fact that Henry Cavill, that is his army. He loves the Custodes, and I think they look cool. The premise is pretty cool, but personally, they are just so tanky. I don't necessarily like them for how tanky they are, and like the fact that they can go, like I played a 1,000-point battle or fight against them with my sisters, and yeah, I get it, like power levels could be a little bit different there, but the fact that I had like 30 to like something troops and this person had like 10 and they just steamrolled me and I took out like one is pretty wild. So that's just my personal opinion on that side of things. The actual reason I don't necessarily like the Custodes is, personally, I have yet to see people use a color scheme for Custodes that catches my attention, because they really are like this. They're the Emperor's Guard. They're very gold, and I feel like a lot of people use the gold in their color schemes in some shape or form, and I kind of tired of seeing gold, especially because I guess maybe it comes from my Stormcast armies. Like, it was always gold for them, and I eventually moved away from that because I was like tired of seeing it. So maybe there's just I just don't have an affinity for gold right now. But I wouldn't say Custodes are bad. I think they're cool still, but all those other things kind of put them a little bit lower. I'd put them in D tier, just purely on aesthetics. If we're going off of like their abilities and how all that stuff, yeah, they'd be way higher. But that's not how we're doing it. On to the next one, which is Salamanders, Space Marines. Personally, I actually really like the idea of the Salamanders being like the nicest of the nice, and also they're green, and plus they use fire. So I actually would put Salamanders up at B because I like the color green. It's one of my favorite colors, green and blue. And in terms of Space Marines, because I don't know if I've ever really explained this, but the faction of Space Marines themselves, I'm kind of over. To me, they feel really, really generic, especially a faction that I'll talk about later. But to me, I feel like out of all of the Space Marine factions, Salamanders is probably higher up. So yeah, that's all I'll say there. Moving on to Orcs. So Orcs are an interesting faction for me because while I do enjoy the concept of Orcs, like their whole thing of like colors, meaning very specific things to give them like stat boosts is hilarious. The fact that they say that, have you ever seen a purple orc? Because purple to them is sneaky is hilarious. They paint red stripes on their vehicles to make them go faster. It's just like everything that the orcs do should not work, and it works. And so that whole concept just makes them fun. I just personally, model wise, I'm not a fan of just the clumps of metal everywhere. That's my main issue with them. They definitely do have some really cool models in general, though. Like, I really do like the Kill Team box. Those models in there are really, really dope. So I don't necessarily put them super high, but they're not like low tier at all. I'll probably put them in B because of the fact that their lore is pretty fun. All right, so Raven Guard. Raven Guard are interesting because I actually used to get Raven Guard and Black Templars mixed up quite a bit. Mainly when I was younger because my brother was a Black Templar player. But Raven Guard are kind of cool to me because of the fact that ravens. I really think like the birds, like that aspect, especially the bird helmets that they have, they're pretty cool. I like the pointy beaks. But I don't necessarily put them any higher than anything else. I probably still like salamanders more. So I'd probably put Raven Guard like right at C tier, maybe. I don't know, maybe we'll move things around in a bit. But yeah, I kind of put them there. Harlequins. Harlequins are interesting because from what I grew up with playing Warhammer 40k back in like 2002, my dad was a Dark Eldar player. So I don't know if Harlequins were actually a thing back then, but I didn't know about them. But when I got back into it, started discovering like all the factions, and I found out about the Harlequins, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. This is, are these the Dark Eldar? But they're not. I do like the concept though, just like demonic clowns. That's kind of fire, not gonna lie. Pretty dope. I just don't know too much about their lore in general. I think their models are cool. I definitely probably would want to eventually try painting some. I just know like a lot of it's like freehand checker painting, and I'm not really good at freehanding, so we'll see how that goes. But I would actually put Harlequins pretty high up, B tier, mainly because I just think they're neat. All right, so White Scars. White Scars are fun as a concept. The fact that they just want to go fast. They're the Sonic of Warhammer, and I love that. Also, the fact that like they're kind of like, I forget his name, but their Primarch is basically Genghis Khan. I think that's very interesting. And while I do like the idea of white armor on Space Marines, the concept of painting white armor sounds like an absolute drag. So while I do enjoy them, the cons of having to paint that army kind of supersedes everything else. So I'll put it in C tier because I don't hate them, but I also can't really say that I love them. Chaos Knights. Okay, so Knights as a whole, I think are cool because I'm a huge mech fan, right? I love giant robots. I love everything when it comes to that. Chaos Knights, though, I don't know too much about. I don't even know much about Knights in general. And to me, I feel like Chaos Knights are just a mirror of Imperial Knights. They just have pokey bits on them now. Different faction. So in terms of looks, I would honestly probably put Knights in D tier from my perspective. That's it. I am also trying to get over this hurdle of painting big, like ginormous vehicles and stuff. I feel like Knights are probably a little bit easier just because of the fact that they have a lot of flat panels on like their armoring sides and all that, but then the more like intricate under parts are more just solid metals because it's just like steel essentially. But all in all, I think in comparison to everything else, I think Chaos Knights would be pretty low. I wouldn't say they're terrible though. I wouldn't put them in F tier at all. All right, my boys, the Tyranids. So this is gonna be my first S tier, and I'm not even gonna say much onto why. I just think they're a fantastic faction. The whole concept of Tyranids is so just mind-blowing to me. And it also stems from the fact that I am a huge StarCraft player. I found out that Games Workshop was supposed to be kind of working with Blizzard to like make a game or something like that in the past, and that's kind of why Warhammer 40k and StarCraft are really similar in terms of like the Space Marines and the Terran faction, and then the Zerg with the Tyranids. That's kind of the main reason why I was really drawn to Tyranids. And Tyranids are actually the faction I'm like really leaning towards for 10th edition. It's not just because they're going to be like the poster box essentially, but it was something I was actually thinking about recently because I really like the concept of a lot of their models, the winged Hive Tyrant, the just the Hive Tyrant in general, some of the Tyranid warriors, like those things look crazy. And also I was a huge fan of Starship Troopers. I grew up with that. My brother always showed me that movie every now and then, so I have very fond memories of just giant bugs like messing people up. So yeah, I just think they're neat. Next faction we got on here is the Death Guard. So I don't know, it's hard to say with the Death Guard because I do like the concept of Chaos Space Marines more than I do normal Space Marines. Back when I used to play Dawn of War, I would play Chaos Space Marines in that game. But Death Guard are, while they are really cool, I don't necessarily like the whole concept of like Plague. It's just not really what I vibe with, especially when you really go into like, I don't know, the color schemes. Like when you think of Plague, you think of like sickly green, yellows, and like the pussy colors and all that. It's cool, but I just don't really vibe with it painting wise. I would say it's probably mid-tier for me just because of that fact. It's like, I do like them, I just don't like the color schemes that kind of go with it. And also I just don't like the idea of Plague. Plague's like whatever. Space Wolves. So let me tell you this right now. Space Wolves, I like their concept visually. I'm really into Norse mythology and like Vikings and all of that. So their aesthetic is really cool. Like I said earlier, I just don't really care for Space Marines in general. But I will say, Space Wolves will be tier because Wolves, Vikings, great up. Moving on, Chaos Space Marines. So as I said, Chaos Space Marines are the ones that I would definitely take over any other Space Marine faction in general. I would say this is going to be our first A tier because I do like their aesthetic, and I do like the fact that you can kind of do whatever you want in terms of color schemes with them. You don't necessarily have to stick to any real faction because the Chaos side is has a little bit more color variety, I feel like. But I could also be wrong because there's so many Space Marine factions out there that I have no idea how many there are anymore. Nor do I know of any of the color schemes that are past the main ones that you see on a day-to-day basis. But I will say, there are some pretty dope Chaos Space Marine models out there. The masks specifically. I don't know why the mask just looks so much cooler to me. All right, Imperial Knights. Once again, Knights are whatever to me. They're just giant mechas. They're cool, but I really don't care for them too much. So they'll go higher. I don't know if I'm really going to do anything when it comes to that horizontal tier, but I would say Imperial Knights are cooler than Chaos Knights because when it comes to painting-wise, they're not pokey, so it's not as hard. Dark Angels. Dark Angels are the actual only Space Marine faction I have actually considered painting, and it's because of the green color. It's a darker green than Salamanders, and Lionel Johnson, the new model, looks pretty sick. Like, if I were to play and choose a faction out of all the Space Marines, it would definitely be Dark Angels because of that new model. And while it is now impossible to get without being scalped, essentially, I would still highly consider getting Dark Angels in terms of my next army over all of these. And I'd actually put it above Chaos Space Marines just because of that as well. Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns are cool. I like their concept. Rubric Marines are actually really dope. I'm just not a huge fan of like psychic or psychers, I guess, in this regard when it comes to the game mechanics. It could change when the new edition comes out, but at this exact moment, psychers is just an extra step that I don't really care for. And not gonna lie, I don't really care for Magnus. He's a cool model and all that. And actually, let me go back. Mortarion from Death Guard. Now that I just mentioned that, the big models, Mortarion knocks him up to B tier for me for Death Guard, because Mortarion is a dope model. My buddy has the model, and I played against it, and it is pretty fire. But that's purely it. Okay, so back to Magnus, Thousand Suns. I don't really care for Magnus. Like, he's cool and all, but he's just eh. So I would say they go C tier, because while I do like the base models, like the Marines themselves, don't really care for much else. Drukhari. So the Drukhari do have a special place in my heart because it was one of the factions that my dad played. But I just don't know much about them to really care. So I'll put them in C tier as well. Moving on to the Adeptus Sororitas. You already know, baby, they're going S tier. My girls love my battle nuns. They're so cool. The Exorcist tank is just, it's so cool. My favorite thing so far. Like, this faction has been my favorite thing to paint out of all of my Warhammer armies, like Age of Sigmar, everything. I love them. Love them. Will never stop saying it. And I have so much more to get for them. Even though I have 2,000 points, I want it all. So, that one's pretty easy. Let's think. Gene Stealer Cult. Honestly, I don't care for them at all. I think they're kind of mid, even though I know they kind of tie into Tyranids. I think I would put them in F tier. I think that would actually no. I have no qualms. Actually, I don't know. I don't have any qualms with them, but at the same time, I have nothing good to say about them because I just never cared enough to learn more about them. I know some of their models. They're like one of the factions that has really outdated models. So like the new boarding patrol, I know giving them new sculpts and everything. But I really don't like their models. They're just like whatever for the most part. I much prefer the Gene Stealers and Tyranids, the actual like alien dudes, versus like the humanoid transformed ones. So Gene Stealers are probably going to F tier for me in that regard because I honestly just don't know enough. Which kind of goes into the next one as well, Iron Hands. I don't know much about Iron Hands. Don't really have any information on them. In terms of, like I said, this tier list is like, what army would I want to play next? Bottom. I just don't know anything. I don't care. Tau Empire. Let me tell you, you heard me earlier. I love me my mechs. They going up in S tier. Tau is the other faction that I was really considering getting into, especially with that new boarding patrol box. Was not able to get it, nor was I looking to buy any models at the time, so it just didn't happen. But Tau are so cool. It's just Gundam in Warhammer, and I fucking love Gundam, so it just goes hand in hand. Pero like everybody and their mother plays Tau, especially with that new boarding patrol box that came out. So it's like I just don't want to feed into the crowd. But yeah, they're still really cool. I definitely would want to get a lot of their big models specifically just to paint, not even to play them, but just to have them and be like, wow, look at this. Amazing. Yeah, I love the Tau. They're really cool. I really enjoyed Squidmar's video that he did of making his giant diorama of the crash ship with the lone fire warrior surviving on the planet. That was kind of my first introduction to like what the Tau were, and so seeing that kind of what sparked my interest in it. And yeah, I just think they're cool. Grey Knights. So as a concept, I probably know a little bit more about Grey Knights than some of the other factions, just because I know that they're all psychers. They are pretty interesting. They don't look like your stereotypical Space Marines. That's probably why I think they're kind of interesting. I still wouldn't really put them super high up because I don't necessarily know much about their mechanics or how they would play against certain things. I just think they look cool, but I wouldn't really put them in contention for anything. Space Marines in general. So like if I was, once again, in this regard, just Space Marines, no. I wouldn't put them, actually, straight up, I just wouldn't select them. Especially if there was no specific faction I was choosing. I was just like, I'm just going to play Space Marines. Like, I wouldn't do. Ultramarines, I wouldn't put them at the very bottom. I do think they have a lot of variety. So there's a lot of different models that are out there. I know they have like a bunch of like lieutenants apparently. It's like the same model, just different sculpts. So I think that's cool. Cool to paint, but I wouldn't choose anything more. Put them in D for sure. Death Watch. I don't know anything about Death Watch. I don't really know what they do. I know they're the. Actually, I don't know what they are. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I'm gonna put them in D tier as well because I just don't know who they are, what they do, how they be. On to Astra Militarum. What can I say about those boys? They die. That's all. They're cannon fodder, right? Like they are just meant to take up space and just explode everywhere, essentially. I do, however, really like the Cadian. What are they called? Oh my gosh, what are they called? Sorry, not the Cadians. The Death Corps of Krieg. Those models look so cool. I talked about the Octarius Kill Team box earlier. The Death Corps Krieg units in that box are some of my favorite models, the sculpts, out of all the stuff I own. And I really want to try and paint them to look like NCR Rangers from Fallout New Vegas because I think that'd be kind of cool. But that's the only reason why Astra Militarum is like higher up for me, is because if I could just have an army full of nothing but Death Corps of Krieg, I would be a-okay with that. I know they're not going to be that great, but I would probably put them in B tier because of such. All right, so the Eldari Craft Worlds. Tell you right now, never really been a fan of the Eldar, like normal Eldar. However, their mech suits that they use, I forget what they're called, but those models are so cool. The really, really tall one, I don't remember its name, but the store that I go to buy my models, they have one, and every time I see it, my brain just tells me, buy it, paint it, put it on your shelf. Like it's like a display piece. And so for the Eldar, it's more of a visually appealing, like I just want it. I don't want to play it. I just want it to have in my collection. So for me, Eldar go A tier purely because I want the models. That's it. All right, so Adeptus Mechanicus, AdMech. I think they're interesting. I say this with love. I have a little bit of a hatred toward them, and it's only because it's what my friend plays, and of course getting into the game, trying to learn it and everything, I lost a lot. So that's the only real reason why I'm like, AdMech. Like I said, though, I think they are pretty cool. They're really interesting. They have some cool mechanics and stuff like that. But in terms of would I play them? Probably not. My friend plays them. I don't really care for their color schemes, models. They got some cool stuff, but it's just not. Next up, Blood Angels. Interesting concept. They were the poster boys, right? Were they the poster boys for Dawn of War? No, I think Dawn of War was something else. Anyway, Blood Angels, I know their Primarch, his name is like Sanguinius. Basically a vampire. They have like some insatiable bloodthirst, but they're still like loyalists or something. I think they're cool, but nothing really stands out to me when it comes to them. They're just another faction of Space Marines, so I probably put them into D tier as well. And finally, Necrons. Necrons are interesting because I do think they're kind of cool. They're pretty. The way I see them, they're basically the Bone Reapers from Sigmar, just the thousands and thousands and thousands of years into the future, you know? But like, I don't know, they're just so common. It's just one of those things that's just off-putting because of the fact that there's so many and you see so much of it around. Like, I go onto third-party selling sites where people are selling their old stuff, and it's like nothing but Necrons, just Necrons on Necrons. And that's actually the main reason why I didn't want to get the Indominus box. Because while it would have been cool at the time, it's like Space Marines and Necrons. I was like, I don't really want both. The only reason I even thought about doing the Space Marine side of that box is because of the Blade Guard veterans. Blade Guard veterans, I will say, are top tier models. They look really cool. But for the price and for the fact that it was going to come with the Necrons that I don't really care about, I was like, I do like the little walker. I forget what it's called. It reminds me of War of the Worlds. But Necrons, all in all, I don't know, man. They're just there. I would definitely probably never choose them as another faction to play. But all in all, I'd say where this tier list is at is a pretty good spread for how I've been thinking when it comes to the next armies, right? Like, let's go through it again. S tier, got Tyranids, Adeptus Sororitas, and Tau Empire. I'm still gonna play my sisters. They are, my bread and butter now at this point. Tyranids, I do want to get into. I'm low key might go to the store this week and buy the Winged Hive Tyrant and build it as a Winged Hive Tyrant to kind of get the color scheme down that I'd want. But we'll see. And then A tier, we got Dark Angels, because in terms of factions I would want to play, that would probably be the next one. Chaos Space Marines, purely just the aesthetic. I like them. I don't know if I'd actually play them. And then Craft World, Eldar Craft World. Yeah, once again, those models I would just love to paint. B tier, we got Salamanders, Orcs, Harlequins, Space Wolves, Death Card, and Astra Militarum. They're all just really cool concepts. I do like them. I just don't really see myself wanting to get them. C tier, they're cool. I just don't care. Chaos Demons, Raven Guard, White Scars, Thousand Suns, Drukhari, and Grey Knights. D tier of is just Custodes, Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, Ultramarines, Death Watch, Admech, and Blood Angels. Finally, that F tier of just not gonna touch with the 10-foot pole. Gene Stealers, Iron Hands, Standard Space Marines, and Necrons. So, it's you know what I mean? I don't know. Once again, this is just my thoughts, my opinions on these factions. I'm excited to see what happens in 10th edition, how this will change, because I love seeing new models come out. So that's probably one of my favorite things when it comes to Warhammer, is just new models. I love them. I love seeing what people are cooking, what color schemes people come up with. My favorite thing about the Lionel figure coming out is all the different versions I've seen of him, not just in the green armor, not with just the hood up, hood down, the helmet on, all that stuff. It's, people have been seeing painting him in white armor. I saw someone paint him in a chromatic, rainbow-esque colors, which looked really, really cool. And it's just exciting to see people kind of just go at these models with their creativity, and it inspires me to do so much more with my own. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. This was fun. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this tier list. I am going to be having at least one or two more come out as well, because there were things I wanted to talk about in general. But if you guys enjoy these, let me know, and I'll definitely keep doing them. I've always enjoyed tier lists. I always thought they were fun. And if you guys want me to talk more about specific things with these items, yeah, let me know. And if you have suggestions for some, shoot them my way. I'll do them, because I like shooting the shit. I like talking out of my own nothing. And yeah, I like giving my opinion when no one asks about it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in once again. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you.